Welcome back, everybody. Well, it is T-minus 24 hours until my family and I will be hitting the road for the airport on our way to London. I'm so excited. This has been my dream trip for as long as I've been traveling. It's finally happening. Could not be more pumped. But in the meantime, I'm going to bring you some more content. And when I did my recent compass test, political compass test, which seemed to have been really well received, we're going to do more of that with some better compass tests down the road. I had a bunch of people say, hey, why don't you do a personality test? I don't know why people would be so interested in me doing a personality test, but I'm going to go ahead and do one today. And I thought this was kind of interesting. As I was preparing for this, I stumbled upon this website called personalitydatabase.com. And apparently 10 people have voted on what they think my personality type is. So we're going to take a look at this real quick, and then we're going to take the test and see how good you people are. Do you really know me as well as you think? So this is what people have decided I am based on their votes. They have decided that I am ISTJ on the Myers-Briggs personality test. So some people have voted otherwise. Like, let's take a look here. It looks like almost everybody thinks I'm S and J. Less certain about the I and the T. So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. I'm pretty sure I am I, because that would be introverted. But you know what? I haven't taken one of these in years, so I honestly have no idea how it's going to turn out. But then there were actually people who commented on this as well. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the comments before we get started. First of all, Legion, who says I'm INFJ, says I'm typing ISTJ because it makes the most sense, just basing it on the type of person he is and his profession. Take a shot every time he mentions that someone in his family served under a specific general. Fair. He loves exploring heritage, and the way he approaches history seems SI. He seems to love history because he loves the past. True. It might seem like a redundant thing to say, but some people have different reasons for liking history. Not a good way to type, but the best I currently got. Also, I'm not good with Enneagram. I'm not real familiar with Enneagram either. Chris just feels like a 9 to me. I'll take a look at 9, and I'll have to see what I think about that. But I have to say, God, this man is wholesome. People say that a lot. I'm probably less wholesome than y'all think I am, but I really do appreciate the kindness in saying that. His energy is amazing. Tell how loving of a person. I appreciate that comes across, guys, and I hope that you understand that I try to be as genuine as possible on the channel, and who you see is who I am. It's not a show. It's not, just kind of a personality that I put on for the YouTube channel. I try to be as authentic as possible. So, all right. So here we go. Let's go ahead and take a look. This is 16personalities.com. And I'm going to take this. You regularly make new friends. So I have no trouble making friends. Like, for example, when I did that recent Band of Brothers tour, bunch of those people I talk to all the time to this day through social media. I connect very easily with people, I think. So I'm gonna kind of agree, not completely, just because I'm not somebody who hangs out with people. I don't go out of my way to call people up and say, hey, you want to go hang out tonight? That kind of thing. I'm kind of a homebody, and I just kind of like to be to myself. But I don't have a problem being in a crowd and hanging out with people and getting along and doing well with that. You spend a lot of your free time exploring various random topics that pique your interest. Absolutely, 100% agree with that. That is totally me. Seeing other people cry can easily make you feel like you want to cry too. I have no trouble crying. A weird quirk of my personality is that I very rarely cry in front of other people. And that's not on purpose. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with crying in front of people or showing emotion. And you guys have seen me show emotion, but I'm usually by myself recording when I show that emotion. So I'm kind of in the middle on that one. You often make a backup plan for a backup plan. No, I'm really kind of like when I travel, I make plans on top of plans on top of plans. But I'm really more of a fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy, by and large. You usually stay calm even under a lot of pressure. That's definitely true. I don't get worked up one way or the other. I don't have a lot of highs and lows. I'm pretty even keeled most of the time. At social events, you rarely try to introduce yourself to new people and mostly talk to the ones you already know. That's probably true. But again, I'm very comfortable meeting new people. I have no trouble with that. But I am a person who goes to old haunts and sticks to what I know. Like, I order the same food at restaurants most of the time. I tend to connect to people I already know. So yeah, that makes sense. You prefer to completely finish one project before starting another. I'm terrible with that. I am so bad at that. And I also have this really weird quirk where I don't completely finish all of a drink. This is very, very normal for me, and I don't even realize that I do it. It's kind of a running joke around here that it's dad's because there's a little bit of it left sitting in the bottom of it. I do that with food too. I'll usually leave one bite of my food, and I don't even realize that I do that. But yeah, I'm terrible with that, unfortunately. You are very sentimental. I would somewhat agree with that. Not 100%. You use organizing tools like schedules and lists. I don't like to use them, but they're very helpful to me. In fact, it's one of the few ways I can stay on task is to have checklists. Even a small mistake can cause you to doubt your overall abilities and knowledge. Never been a problem for me. I don't deal with those kinds of doubts. You feel comfortable just walking up to someone you find interesting and striking up a conversation. I got no trouble with that. You are not too interested in discussing various interpretations and analyses of creative works. I would disagree with that. I like to talk about such things. You are more inclined to follow your head than your heart. I would mostly agree with that. Yeah. You usually prefer just doing what you feel like at any given moment instead of planning a particular daily routine. That's definitely true. Definitely true of me. You rarely worry about whether you make a good impression on people you meet. I would say that's more true now than it was maybe 10 years ago. I used to be a real people pleaser. And I had a really hard time saying no to people because I didn't want to disappoint people. The older I get, the less I care what people think of me. So I rarely worry about whether I make a good impression. I would say I rarely worry, but it still concerns me. I want to make sure I make a good impression on people, and I want to always be doing my best to leave a favorable impression on people, but it's not something I obsess about or that I worry about. You enjoy participating in group activities. I would slightly disagree with that, only because I think if given the choice between doing something on my own and doing it in a group, I'd probably almost always rather do it on my own. You like books and movies that make you come up with your own interpretation of the ending. No! I much prefer when they tell me exactly what happened so I don't have to speculate and come up with my own interpretation. Definitely disagree with that. Your happiness comes more from helping others accomplish things than your own accomplishments. I would slightly agree with that. I would say that neither one necessarily is where I get my happiness from. But I would probably more get happiness from, say, my kids or my wife accomplishing something than me personally doing it. Yeah, I think that's probably true. All right, you are interested in so many things that you find it difficult to choose what to try next. No, I'm interested in a lot of different topics, like historically, for example, but no, I tend to have a small area of things that I am deeply interested in. You're prone to worrying that things will take a turn for the worse. Now, that's my wife. She definitely does that. She kind of is a worst case scenario type person. I don't worry about such things. You avoid leadership roles in group settings. No, I almost always end up in the leadership role in group settings. I was on a jury a couple of years ago on a felonious assault case, and we went into the jury room and had to determine who the foreman was going to be. And 30 seconds in, I think I spoke up and said, "So, anybody have any idea on who they think should be the foreman?" And one person pointed at me right away and said, "Oh, I think it should be you." And then everybody else agreed, and I'm like, well, if anybody else wants to, that's fine. I'll do it if no one else wants to. And literally every person in the room said I should do it. And then a year later, my wife was on jury duty, and she ended up the foreman on her jury. So it just in a vacuum of leadership, in a situation where there's a group setting and there's no clear hierarchy, I find that I tend to end up being the one that kind of takes charge. So I would definitely disagree with that one. You are definitely not an artistic type of person. See, artistic can be defined so many different ways. Like in terms of actual art, like painting and drawing and stuff, zero artistic ability. I can barely draw stick figures. My kids are phenomenal artists. But I am very artistic in that I write music. But I guess I'll probably lean slightly on the disagree side. Actually, on the agree side on that one. You think the world would be a better place if people relied more on rationality and less on their feelings. I'll slightly agree with that. You prefer to do your chores before allowing yourself to relax. No. Relax first. Chores only when absolutely necessary. Don't tell my kids. You enjoy watching people argue. Disagree. Oh my gosh. It's not as bad now as it used to be, but I am such a conflict avoider that I, for a long time, had a hard time even being in the same room with people who are arguing with each other. I'd be in a church board meeting and there'd be a disagreement, and I'd go to the bathroom, or I'd just hide behind paper. I am that bad with avoiding conflict. I can't watch presidential debates for that reason. When they start talking over each other and all that, I can't even watch it. As much as I'm interested in politics and the process of elections, can't watch the arguing. Just can't do it. You tend to avoid drawing attention to yourself. I kind of draw attention to myself for a living, so I guess I have to disagree with that. Your mood can change very quickly. No, disagree. I'm not a morning person. You ask my wife and kids, they will tell you that I can be a little grumpy in the morning until I'm awake. Once I'm awake, though, pretty even-keeled the rest of the day. You lose patience with people who are not as efficient as you. Agree. I get behind somebody who's going 10 mile an hour under the speed limit, and oh my gosh, I get so irritated so quickly. Yeah, so that's probably true. You often end up doing things at the last possible moment. I wouldn't say at the last possible moment, but I am definitely a procrastinator. And I work better under the pressure of a deadline, especially when that deadline is close. We are leaving for London in 23 hours, and I have not started packing, me or the kids yet. So, you have always been fascinated by the question of what, if anything, happens after death. I mean, I absolutely agree with that. I'm a pastor. I'm a Christian. I'm fairly confident in what happens after death, but it doesn't fascinate me any less just because I feel like I know what happens. You usually prefer to be around others rather than on your own. Disagree. You become bored or lose interest when the discussion gets highly theoretical. No, disagree. I like theoretical discussions. I like the what-if scenarios. You find it easy to empathize with a person whose experiences are very different from yours. I'm capable of empathizing with people whose experiences are different than mine. It's much easier to empathize with someone who has similar experiences. Like, I can empathize so much more with a person who's lost a child, being a parent, and someone who's lost an unborn child myself, than I could with, say, someone who's lost a parent or a spouse, because I haven't experienced that. So, yeah, I guess I'd slightly disagree with that. You usually postpone finalizing decisions for as long as possible. I would disagree. As a procrastinator, yes, I am, but I try to make decisions as quickly as possible. You rarely second guess the choices you've made. I would slightly agree with that. I don't often second guess choices that I've made. After a long and exhausting week, a lively social event is just what you need. Totally disagree. After a long, exhausting week, I need a whole bunch of time to myself. I am peopled out. And my daughter's just like that. She needs time away from people too. All right. You enjoy going to art museums. I don't go out of my way to go to art museums, but I don't mind an art museum. My wife was a fine arts major in college. She loves art museums, and I've gone to quite a few with her, and I've always enjoyed my experiences there. So I would go right in the middle on that one. I don't go out of my way to go to them, but I don't dislike them either. You often have a hard time understanding other people's feelings. I would slightly disagree with that. I'm probably not the most empathetic person in the world, but I think I'm better at it now than I was even a few years ago. You like to have a to-do list for each day? Nah, not really. If one is forced on me, I probably would be more efficient, but I don't like them. You rarely feel insecure. I would strongly agree with that. I'm not someone. I'm a pretty confident person. I try to be humble. I wouldn't say I'm cocky, but I don't feel a lot of insecurity. You avoid making phone calls. With every fiber of my being, I avoid making phone calls. I would rather text any day of the week. And if I do have to make a phone call, 3 minutes or less is best. I'm not a phone call person at all. My wife's totally opposite. My sister's just like me on that. My sister and I can go years without speaking on the phone, and all of our communications, if they're not in person, are through text message. All right, you often spend a lot of time trying to understand views that are very different from your own. I don't know if I'd say I spend a lot of time doing it, but I have no trouble with that, and I think it's very important to do that, to understand views that are different from your own. I think that's how we grow. It's how we learn. I think we are a better human being if we understand other people's views. And I think I'm a much better, more well-rounded, and better human being when I understand other people's views that are not my own. So in your social circle, you are often the one who contacts your friends and initiates activities. Disagree. I'm the one dragged kicking and screaming to activities. If your plans are interrupted, your top priority is to get back on track as soon as possible. Slightly disagree. I don't mind if my plans get interrupted too much. It's weird because I'm kind of a fly by the seat of your pants guy, but also, like, once you get about a day or two ahead, if I have plans in place, don't throw something on me last minute. I kind of like to know what's coming. It's kind of weird. You are still bothered by mistakes that you made a long time ago. That used to be true of me. I would say that I pretty strongly disagree with that now. I don't beat myself up over that stuff. You rarely contemplate the reasons for human existence or the meaning of life. Well, here's an interesting one because, again, being someone who is in pastoral ministry, it's kind of at the core of what I do on a Sunday morning is to contemplate human existence and the meaning of life. I don't contemplate that from the standpoint that I sit wondering what it is. I feel I'm pretty confident in what I think those things are. I'm just going to go in the middle because there's so many ways that could be interpreted. Your emotions control you more than you control them. Totally disagree. No, not an issue for me. You take great care not to make people look bad, even when it is completely their fault. I don't think it's ever my intention to make people look bad. I probably do occasionally do that, but it's never my intention to do that. I would say there's probably times that I'm blind to things I might say or do and their ability to make people look bad, but it's never my intention. So I would say I'll slightly agree with that just because, while I don't know that I take great care to proactively not make people look bad, I'm also never trying to make people look bad. So kind of in the middle there. Your personal work style is closer to spontaneous bursts of energy than organized and consistent efforts. 100% true. 100% true, which is what makes being a YouTuber such a great thing, because I can have my spontaneous burst of energy to get recordings done and then kind of go do whatever after that. When someone thinks highly of you, you wonder how long it will take for them to feel disappointed in you. I don't think I think like that, no. It means a lot to me when people think highly of me, and I value that greatly. but I don't worry too much about disappointing them, I guess. You would love a job that requires you to work alone most of the time. Yes, and I have that. Yay, me. Okay. You believe that pondering abstract philosophical questions is a waste of time. I don't think that's a waste of time. It's not something I necessarily do a lot myself. You feel more drawn to places with busy, bustling atmospheres than quiet, intimate places. Disagree. I don't mind both. Like, I'm going to London, man. I mean, that's about as busy and bustling as it gets. And I've enjoyed my time in New York City, for example. So I like both. You know at first glance how someone is feeling. Depends on the someone. My wife, my kids, other people that I know well, I would say probably true. You often feel overwhelmed. Nah, I don't typically feel overwhelmed. Occasionally, but it's pretty rare. Is this the last page? I think it is. You complete things methodically without skipping over every step. No, I'm the exact opposite. If I take a test, for example, and there's 20 questions, I'll probably do like the first 6 or 7 and then skip down to like 15 and then come back. And like, I never do things in order. I'm always bouncing around. I'm terrible at that. You are very intrigued by things labeled as controversial. Somewhat true, I guess. You would pass along a good opportunity if you thought someone else needed it more. I think that probably depends on the opportunity, but I would probably agree with that. Yeah, I think so. I'm at a very blessed place in my life. There's very little that I need right now. And when opportunities come along, it's just more blessing. But right now, my wife and I and our family, we are at the place where we are much more in the position to be giving opportunities and blessing other people than we are receiving other people's opportunities and blessings. So, haven't always been in that place for most of my life, but I'm here now, and it's a good place to be. It's a wonderful feeling to be able to be in a place where you can give to others who need it. You struggle with deadlines. I don't struggle with deadlines. I actually work really good under pressure. I'm probably better with deadlines than without them. You feel confident that things will work out for you. Most of the time, yeah, I would say I probably do. Gender, male. All right, let's see the results. How do I compare to what people said they thought I was? So this says I am INFPA. Okay, so first of all, how does that compare with how people voted on me? So they said ISTJ. Holy cow, y'all were way the heck off on me. Got the I right, and I talk all the time about being an introvert. So that, yes. But it looks like pretty much everything else was off. Somebody did say they thought I was INFP. So there was one person who voted that way. I don't know if there's a way to see who it was. But INFP. So introverted, 64%. This determines how we interact with our environment. Not at all surprised by that. I'm a very outgoing person, and it surprises most people to find out that someone whose whole life exists in front of others as a public speaker is actually an introvert. But I totally am. Being around people drains me, and I recharge by being alone. Not everyone's like that. All right, so energy, intuitive versus observant. And then the next part is nature. I'm barely feeling overthinking, which is kind of interesting because typically somebody in history-related field is going to be more of a thinker. But I'm kind of 50-50 on that one. And then tactics, prospecting, much higher over judging. And then identity is assertive versus turbulent. So read the profile. So, all right, so let's take a look. I am the mediator personality. A diplomat. Interesting. So J.R.R. Tolkien quote there. Does that mean Tolkien's that kind? This is one of my least favorite quotes, or least favorite phrases, by the way. Their truth. There is no such thing as your truth or my truth, because truth by definition is truth. It doesn't matter if I believe it or if I agree with it. Truth is truth. All right, anyway, get that out of the way. Let me look this over a little bit, and then I'll record and we'll talk a little more about it. Okay, so These are obviously estimates because nobody knows for sure what some of these people may have been. But J.R.R. Tolkien and William Shakespeare are both of my personality type. That's some nice company to be in. Tom Hiddleston. Oh, Loki himself. Very cool. Julia Roberts, Alicia Keys. Who else was there? Bjork. William Wordsworth. Johnny Depp. Frodo Baggins. Arwen. Interesting. Sybil Branson from Downton Abbey. Sweets from Bones. Interesting. Okay. So strengths and weaknesses of this type. Tend to be empathetic, generous, open-minded. I'd like to think those things are true of me. Passionate, creative, idealistic. Weaknesses, unrealistic. Yes, definitely true of me. I tend to overpromise and underdeliver. That is a major fault that I have. Something that I have to work on and will probably always have to work on. Self-isolating, yes. Mediators long to connect with others, but they don't always know how. Okay, unfocused, definitely true of me as well. That's spot on. Emotionally vulnerable. Sometimes, maybe. Desperate to please. Probably less so now than a few years ago, but yeah. Self-critical. I don't know how self-critical I would say that I am. Let's see what career paths fit my personality type. Curious about this. So interesting. Counseling, psychology, teaching. Okay, teaching. Healthcare, social work. Which is interesting because these tend to describe my wife more than me. Like the counseling and social work thing. That's what she's been doing for years now. Teaching, okay, fair enough. But massage therapy, nope. I give my wife a massage for like 2 minutes and I'm done. Interesting. Playwrights, composers, or choreographers. They may find it demotivating to work in high-stress, bureaucratic, or hectic environments, frustrated by workplaces that are highly critical or competitive. Definitely would be true of me. I'm not someone who does well with reviews because I take that stuff very personally. Interesting. So there you have that. I don't know if I 100% agree with that. And obviously, like with the thinking and feeling one, it's so close between the two that I could probably just as easily be the INTP instead of INFP. But definitely introverted. But it's interesting that people were so sure about S and J, and neither one of them turned out to be true. So let me know your thoughts about all of that. I thought that was a fun exercise, interesting. Maybe gives you a little bit more insight into who I am and why I do things the way I do them. I don't know. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and we'll be back with more history content for you real soon. Thanks for watching.